Hi, how you doing?
I'm good. It's so lovely to see you again.
I know, it's been ages, Josh.
It
How
has
you
been
been?
ages. I've
It
been
was another
good.
world. It was
I
another
know,
world the last time.
isn't it just? But I got to tell you, this release, just like Radioactive, I adored this release. Honestly, I watched it beaming from ear to ear, but also at times like, ooh. And the funny thing is, I never knew what to think with your character at all. He almost throughout the film, you could tell he kind of had an ulterior motive, but not at the same time. For you, what was that like, and how did you find it hard to kind of depict those kind of psychological undertones?
But I mean, that's the fun of it, really. And and Ben Wheatley, the director, it's the third time we've worked together, and I always play some form of rogue. So he obviously sees something in I don't know what that could be, Josh, to be honest with you, but the psychological undertones are great fun to play, because even if you are playing someone that is less sympathetic, there's always a reason usually. And I think Jack Favels are fairly understandable once they become clear towards the end, without saying too much, to play these sorts of people. And I loved I've worked with Lily before. I don't know if you've ever seen Pride, Prejudice and Zombies.
I have indeed.
Well, it was great fun switching it round completely to suddenly be more Wickham-esque with her. And she's just a joy to work with anyway.
Because I mean, that was going to be my next question. How was it working with everyone? But you basically answered that already.
Sorry, Josh.
Don't worry at all, Sam. It's all good. But another question that I was thinking when I was watching this film was, because I've seen so many of your performances, obviously Maleficent, we chatted about Radioactive. Do you get more satisfaction playing a character with a kind of dark undertone, kind of villainous-esque, or do you prefer playing those kind of caring characters, the one that you find in Maleficent, the psychic, and obviously Pierre Curie being the caring husband?
I think what was lucky about those parts is that they swap. I wouldn't want to only do either of those two things. And I think I've been quite lucky, because it felt to me when I did Maleficent that I hadn't really ever done anything like that before, something more light, comic, if you like. And to do that, obviously, with Angelina Jolie, everyone wants to do that. And to work with, and similarly, Pierre was such a charming and unusual man, such a modern and beautiful example of how to be a supporting husband. It was great to play. So then it's always fun to not have to always be the same. I like to be able to do that and then switch to doing something like this. I think if they're well written and you're doing it with great people, it's always fun. There's not really a particular favorite, but there's always a strange pleasure one gets from playing someone more villainous.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I spoke to Kristen. She said on a scale of 1 to 10, she said 10, absolutely. But I want to know.
The first time I worked with her, I was on another film. And when I came into the costume makeup in the morning, I was terrified of her, because she said, "Who are you?" I almost asked her if she wanted a tea or anything. But she's actually great. We really like each other. We have a really good gossip and have a giggle, but you don't think that she's going to be like that. I mean, she really does enjoy playing with that side of herself, if you know what I mean.
And I mean, in this film, you could tell. Just finally,
well, she's perfect for it. She's perfect.
Yes, she absolutely is. I think that is safe to say. And finally, as an actor in this pandemic, it is a very uncertain time. How are you feeling about the future?
Well, I think it's important to try and remain hopeful, or to remain hopeful, which is difficult. I mean, I don't want to sound flippant, but for me, having long periods of time not knowing when I'm next working isn't, well, that unfortunately all that unusual. But I worry particularly for you know, on a film set, as you know, there are hundreds of people working.
Mm.
You're only talking now to the 5 or 6 of us out of a team of 100 people, and it's their jobs that I'm more concerned about.
Mm.
They're usually slightly less better paid than we are, to put it mildly. And they're not really being supported without getting political. So I worry for the people who are, you know, they're so extraordinarily talented as well, and have honed a craft over years. And I worry about them more than I worry about myself. And I've been lucky that living in Germany, my wife's been able to work amazingly a few times this year. So as a family, we'll be all right. But we're not going to know really. I think it'll all be different afterwards. I mean, people are going to have to watch stuff because there's not a lot else to do, is there? But I hope there's some support for people before it's safe to work again, because they're going to need it.
Absolutely. And I love watching this. Sam, as always, it's an absolute pleasure chatting to you.
And you, Josh. Hope I see you in the flesh in the future.
Yeah, hopefully sooner rather than later, we hope.
Yeah,
Thank you so
absolutely.
much.